Ask the Mayor on KWBE, our weekly program with Beatrice Mayor Stan Wirth, 228-5923 if you have a question for the mayor today. And since we had in Pat Feist last week, electric superintendent, we got about two days before that, I think a day or two before that, Mayor, we got 6 questions mailed into us that were more relevant to the mayor answering them.
Sure.
So we thought we'd just kind of address those one by one as we go through here. Let's just go from the top here. Are electric bikes, or whatever they're called, 2 large wheels in back, 1 large wheel in front, are they legal on streets and highways?
They are. Anywhere that you can ride a regular bicycle, they're going to be, at this point, legal. So e-bikes can go anywhere a regular bicycle can go, unless there's going to be some changes or we have some violations that we think that it needs to be addressed. But at this point, they can be ridden on the trail, they can be ridden on sidewalks, they can be ridden in the streets. E-bikes are allowed at this point.
I can't recall if I've observed maybe once or twice the one going. Maybe there's more than
there are quite a few e-bikes in the community, and it's really popular among the older population. Simply because once in a while you get a hill that you just have a difficult time climbing, so you kick it into the electric mode and you go.
All right. Second question is, are there rules for parking campers and trailers on your property? It seems to be a problem in some areas. Many are on driveways. Some of them are in yards. I can think of one right near where I live that's in a yard. Some have cords that are running under garage doors, as though people may be using them to live in, or just kind of
Sure. Yeah, and there are specific guidelines and there are specific rules. I think it's ordinance number 909 of the city's ordinance code that indicates that they have to be parked off the right-of-way, behind the setback, side yards or rear yards. I think it's something that if folks would get a hold of our Public Properties Department, if there is a problem, if there is an issue that they see.
Or Community Development
Department. What did I say?
Public Properties.
No,
don't want to make Mark.
Don't call Mark Peathot. He doesn't want to hear that. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Community Development Department, 228-5200.
Although Rod might like you.
Yeah. Well, anyway, if there is an issue, if there is a problem, please give them a call. There's, I think, issues that we have in our community today, and what we need to do is resolve those issues one by one and pick them off as we deem necessary.
You wonder sometimes if it maybe stems partly from people moving to a new address and they've got all this property that they had before, and maybe now they don't have the space or rental space for it, and they just park it on the property for a while.
Right. And but there are specific rules that it needs to be located on asphalt or pavers. So I know that there are violations in our community, but specifically I don't know exactly where they are. So if the caller has those issues and questions, obviously Community Development Department is where this needs to be directed.
All right. Next question, does the city still receive funds from Keno money? They don't hear very much about amounts that have been taken in, how much of what it's used for, how much is raised. A lot of places have Keno, or still do?
I can think of, right off, I can think of 2. I think 402 has Keno still, and so does Biggs. And yes, we do receive Keno receipts. Certainly don't know what those numbers are. I don't have them in front of me. The Keno receipts, I think, has fallen off somewhat, simply because of some other gaming opportunities that folks have, and probably will fall off a little more come September when it's going to be allowed in the state of Nebraska.
Yeah, casinos coming in at racetracks have probably have some impact there, but anyway, that's the answer to that one. And another question, are there fire inspectors that routinely check a business, school, hospital, nursing homes in the city, and how often is that done?
Not sure how often it is, Doug, but yes, it does occur. I know when at my former employment, they walked in unannounced one day and just wanted to walk through the building, and we showed them around. They really didn't find any violations. There was one issue that they didn't like, and we corrected. So yes, that does occur.
Now,
how often it is, I don't know.
Yeah, that's transferred more from a local responsibility to a state responsibility.
That is correct.
Hasn't it? I mean, there used to be an actual fire inspector within the local fire department.
Right. So it's now more localized than it was before.
Okay. Next question. What does the city charge, if anything, for what's called a lift assist when an ambulance crew goes out?
I don't know.
Okay.
Don't know the answer to that question, Doug. I don't know that we actually charge. I know there is situations where we do go to residences, sometimes on a regular basis, because folks that are in their homes that occasionally fall need some help, and so we'll run out there and take care of that situation. What we charge, I can't answer that.
You know, ambulance issues like that, you deal with them once in a while. I know there's been discussion in the past about, long-term, how do you handle transfers and things like that, and should that be up to somebody else or whatever? But I guess it's more of a kind of a community service.
It is.
That you provide. So,
it is.
Yeah. Last question on the list of the 6 that we received. Dempsters, of course, has been an issue. What to do with that? Tear down that big manufacturing building in South Beatrice. Their question is, why is the Hoover group plant and their what they say is contaminated ground there not maybe gotten the attention?
Well, it is an issue. There's no doubt about it. Still owned by the Hoover Group and whatever consortium they're involved in right now. There's quite a they've changed names over the course of the years and changed management, changed ownership, but they have actually reached out to us in an effort to determine how they're going to take care of this situation. Is the soils contaminated there? Absolutely. We know that. They know that. And it's another one of those manufacturing companies that years ago just didn't have the Department of Environmental Quality rules that we do today. And so they handled their disagreeable materials differently than we have to do today. So it is an issue. We know that it's an issue. They've reached out to us, and hopefully between now and 10 years from now, these issues are going to be addressed.
Well, on the topic of the Dempster property, that's, of course, an ongoing thing where you do face kind of a different situation there as far as
sure.
ownership or trying to determine who's responsible for what. But there's some evaluation being done on that site.
There is. EPA has been there now for several weeks trying to evaluate all the stuff that is in there. There was a pumper truck and a tanker that was outside of the Dempsters facility and removed about 8,000 gallons of old diesel fuel that was in a storage tank on the property. And that was just another step in all of the steps that need to be taken to rid the property of, again, disagreeable materials. Sometimes we look at that quart jar and have no idea what's in that quart jar. They are assessing everything. They are also assessing the cost of what it's going to take to remove all of the asbestos that's in the facility. Again, we don't own Dempster Industries today. We will pick off those pieces as they become available on tax sales. And hopefully we don't have to spend an arm and a leg to buy those back taxes. But if we're going to rid the community of that property, that's what we're going to have to do, and it could be expensive.
Removing the asbestos and then all the chemicals and whatever that is there or may be found to be there in the future. Have you been given any indication of how much longer that process will take to get to that?
Really don't know. We're on EPA's timeline. And that could be a long, drawn-out process, or it could happen quicker than we think. We hope it does, but the sooner it happens, the sooner we're going to try to get in there and do what we need to do, and that's level it.
Is there any indication that there might be some parts of the building that aren't so much subject to bad things that have been dumped there that you might be able to start on first?
Yes, I think so. I think especially in the west edge of that footprint, and then work our way east to the main facility. I think that's a strong possibility. We were hoping that on some of the parcels that we do now own, of course, those parcels don't have any buildings on them today. And people need to understand there is like 13 or 14 different parcels. Each parcel is its own entity, if you would, and so each parcel comes up for a tax sale at a certain point in time, and it's kind of laddered, and we have to pick those off one at a time as they become available. So again, it's a long process. It's going to take several years before this is going to be completed.
Well, we thank the caller for calling in all of those questions, and we welcome questions in the future as well at 228-5923. You can also mail those questions to us, and we'll pass them along to Mayor Stan Wirth on Ask the Mayor. We'll have more in a moment. Back on Ask the Mayor today with Beatrice Mayor Stan Wirth with us. Every once in a while, we like to take a look at how the revenue picture is for the city of Beatrice and its utility funds, sales tax, and all of that. How are things shaping up?
I think pretty good. Electric department, our revenues are up a little over 2% as compared to May of 2021. Operating expenses are down about 21%. And so even though our operating loss or our income for the last reporting period showed a loss of $22,000, that's pales in comparison to the loss of $2.4 million in the same reporting time frame or the trailing 12 months. But that was because of that polar vortex incident where it cost an awful lot of money to buy electricity for a very, very short period of time. Water fund, that revenue picture looks pretty bright, up about 8%. Compared to a year previous. And our expenses are actually down in the water department, even though materials for the water department are quite expensive today, simply because of supply and demand and maybe the supply chain and things that are that you order today you may not receive for an extended period of time. I think Steve Kelly has done a really good job of laying in some inventory that he anticipated some time ago that we were going to need. So he got most of that at then the market price as opposed to what the market price is today. Our water pollution control operating revenues are at about 8% increase compared to the trailing 12 months. And our net operating income for the last reporting period was about $271,000 compared to about $321,000 the year previous. But our expenses are down, so that's, again, a good thing.
Governments that locked in fuel prices are looking like geniuses right now, aren't they?
It is pretty amazing. If we locked in 20,000 gallons of diesel fuel and regular gasoline. Diesel fuel at $2.97. Look at what diesel fuel prices are today, and unleaded at $3.15. All of this is good through the month of October, and we will consume all of that, maybe just a little more. But we looked really good at the time. Sometimes you don't always look that good, but this last period when we actually locked in those prices, I think that was in February or March when we locked those prices in. So that really helps the bottom line.
Yeah. Sales tax revenue, I know you have, about a 2-month lag as to where you find out each month's collection.
Right.
But how generally has that been going?
Total sales tax numbers in the last reporting period were up 8%. Last year, the fiscal year sales tax showed an increase of 15% compared to 2020, while fiscal year 20 had an increase of 4%. So any trend is still a good trend since last year saw quite a large increase. Now, April sales tax, the last reporting period, was the first month that we did not outperform the previous year. But it wasn't a big change. The previous year was $497,000. April of 2022 was $476,000. So about a $20,000 swing.
Yeah. You know, the effects of inflation, I think yesterday across the country, the retail inflation was like 9.1%. Wholesale inflation today over
Exactly.
11%. Interest rates going up. You wonder what that's going to have on, big ticket payment items. Where are people going to go buy that car, buy that house, things like that? How's that kind of work into the overall revenue picture for you?
Well, again, people are going to need public services. They're going to need the electricity, the water, the wastewater treatment center is certainly a necessity. We still need to improve our streets and our roads. I think that we're going to continue to provide those services. We hope we don't have to raise any fees for any of those services. My guess is we won't, because we have some reserves. We have some pretty decent income coming in. So, again, I think the big picture is we don't want to impose any rate increases if at all necessary.
Okay. Construction update. I know on the contractor that's doing the concrete project at 4th Street and Lincoln Street. They had the Lincoln Street project done, then got hit by a couple of rainstorms, so that kind of puddled things up a little bit on the 4th Street project. But how overall is that going as far as?
I think it's all going actually really well. They anticipate, at the Board of Public Works meeting yesterday, that we should have that concrete paving project at 4th and Lincoln wrapped up sometime next week. So that'll be a good thing. I know that the 4th and Lincoln intersection is being poured. I think they poured it yesterday, if I'm not mistaken. And obviously you have that 7-day cure period that you have to wait that out. So hopefully by the end of next week that whole thoroughfare will be open.
And access for people in the area was actually pretty quick. There wasn't a lot of interruption, I didn't think.
Well, when they did the mill and overlay, people still had access to their properties because they could drive on that. There was some inconvenience because of the pouring of Lincoln Street, but that is now complete. And so we tried to make it as seamless as possible, even though there are some inconveniences.
Back to wrap up Ask the Mayor with Mayor Stan Wirth in just a moment. Time to wrap up Ask the Mayor today on KWBE with Mayor Stan Wirth. I got asked the other day, of course, the bid was approved for the demolition of 413 Court, which is known as the Barber Building, downtown Beatrice. And the question to me was, when all does that happen? Is that coming up soon?
Yeah, well, it should be. Skyline Roofing is the company that has contracted with a demo team that's going to come in. We're anticipating that they could start as early as next week on the project. We've not heard specifically an exact date of when it's going to happen, but obviously you're going to see barricades put up, and just to safeguard those that are using that sidewalk. They'll have to divert that traffic, pedestrian traffic elsewhere. But hopefully next week after, we'll start seeing some work progress there.
Anytime you have a building like that, which is directly adjacent to a couple others, of course, you had agreements with the other property owners as to how that was going to be handled. But that's always kind of a little touchy situation in there, isn't it?
And there was work done to stabilize both of those buildings adjacent to what is known as the Barber Building. And the city actually brought an engineer in to make sure that work was done properly, and it was. And so now we're pretty confident that both buildings are stabilized to the point where we can start doing some jackhammering and vibration and not affect those two buildings.
You have to kind of swallow hard with the cost. You remember the cost of 407 Court.
Oh, I know.
And this one's higher than that.
This one's $277,000, and that does not include landfill fees.
Oh, okay.
So it's an expensive endeavor, but the other side of it is if you tried to fix that building up, it was going to be far more than what the demo costs are going to be.
Okay. Downtown redevelopment loans, I know at the last council meeting, I believe, the council approved 3 of them, if I remember right.
That is correct.
And the second grant round that came through, I would imagine you're going to be getting other applications coming forward?
I think there was 13 in all that were approved to utilize the funds that are available, and I believe those funds were in the neighborhood of $436,000. Mm-hmm. Now, property owners are actually putting some skin in the game with these grants that are going to be available. I think Aaron Schoen and Kylie Schoen are fixing up what is known as, for those that remember, the Bagby building. Mm. And I think they're going to put some apartments up above. That was about a $52,000 application. The Heidos, John and Rita Heido, at 323 Court, they're working on what is known as the Cook Electric building. Mm-hmm. They're fixing that up, going to have a couple of apartments upstairs and maybe some real estate, what am I trying to say? Retail space available on the main floor. And that was about a $70,000 deal. And then the other one was at 308 Court Street, Jim's Carpet and Supplies. They're working on the foundation.
I see. Anything in recent weeks regarding, of course, the Kensington, the former retirement center at the Paddock Hotel, what used to be the Paddock Hotel at 6th and Court? Anything new on that in terms
Not
of...
really. We have a meeting set up with the downtown group that we're going to further discuss this next Wednesday. And there has been some interest from out-of-town investors. One as far away, I believe, is at Kansas City. The other one as close as Lincoln. But I haven't received a follow-up on where we are with that project. Hopefully get an update next Wednesday, and we can talk about it next Thursday.
All right. Lincoln Corridor project, I know you're kind of waiting to hear the recommendations on that. Is that to come up this month or more than likely August?
Actually, this month. We're hoping that, they actually promised us the results of that study by the end of July.
I see. Mm-hmm. Okay. So that'll be interesting to see. Yeah. And that's a big project, a lot of cost involved and some decisions to be made as to how much of that you can bite off or undertake.
Right. I would agree.
Yeah. This past Monday, Beatrice Public School is kind of crossing jurisdictions here, but of course they have the plan for the new elementary school in East Beatrice on the property they own, right along Lincoln Street, about 30 acres there. Got into kind of the concept of it, the drawings, the access points and things. Right. Is it becoming more clear as to what the city, if anything, responsibility would be in terms of like the entrance points, access, or things like that?
That really good question. And JEO has done a study for us specifically in that location for at least Lincoln Street, where the access point would be. And the 33rd Street proposal is yet to be determined, studied, trying to figure out what it's going to cost to actually do that street. And there's going to be, obviously, an access point off of 33rd Street. Mm-hmm. 33rd Street, obviously, is going to have to be widened if you're going to add a third lane, and there would be a third lane. That third lane would be a turn lane. We're still trying to figure out costs, how we're going to pay for it. There is some creative financing that we could probably utilize, and one would be maybe borrowing some money from our electric department, because we have some excess funds in our electric department today. We don't want to sell ourselves short, however, because if we have if we have an unforeseen event that could cost us a lot of money, it could run us short, and we don't want that to happen. So there's a lot of different avenues, I think, that we're looking at today to try to fund this project, and we're hoping that District 15 can actually partner with us in some of those costs.
That 33rd Street entrance becomes important because the main entrance on the school is going to be on the south side there, but they are going to have also a bus entrance, as I understand, maybe a preschool entrance along Lincoln, if I recall.
Right, that is correct.
Correctly. So kind of working that all into something that makes sense is important.
Yeah, we're going to get some engineers involved. Those engineers will do their study, and we're going to have to do it sooner than later. If construction of the school is going to start yet this year, we're going to have an engineer, an architect in place, hopefully by the month of February of next year.
Okay. Council meeting coming up Monday night. Not a ton of stuff on the agenda, but understand there's a couple of Beatrice Plus program grants?
There is. One is a grant application for about $5,000 for fencing, a 4-foot fence and a 6-foot fence that separates the pickleball courts on the tennis courts that are located at Chautauqua Park. Mm-hmm. And so that is going to be considered, and that recommendation will come to the City Council. The other one is from the Rotary Foundation, a request of about $10,000 for some light replacement at Veterans Memorial Park. The total cost is about $20,000. So again, thinking that the city could share in some of those costs, or at least the Beatrice Plus program, which is a roundup program on your utility bill.
All right, Mayor, we'll see you Monday night.
Thank you, Douglas.